Today is Abby's golden birthday. It's April 14th, and she's turning 14.
We often believe what we see, but maybe that isn't the case always. Ruby Franke, a parenting YouTuber and a vlogger, was charged with abusing her children. A striking irony. We always knew parents had our backs, but who knew some people never read their own books? A parenting vlogger from Utah, or at least that's how she presented herself, managed to deceive millions of subscribers with her so-called ideal parenting methods. She began her YouTube journey under the guise of helping people nurture and care for their children in supposedly optimal ways. However, the truth about her intentions and actions surfaced only when the curtains of her carefully constructed facade came crashing down. Let's take a look at the timeline from where she began her parenting YouTube channel to how her evil reign came to an end. She began her YouTube channel in 2015 named 8 Passengers. 8 Passengers, indicating Ruby, Kevin Franke, her husband, and her 6 children. Initially, everything seemed all rosy as things went according to her script, and the channel eventually took off. Well, however, exactly about 8 years later, in September 2023, YouTube decided to terminate the channel permanently. The reasons got not only her viewers, but the entire world in an awful chokehold. Let's see when her ideal parenting pretense began to crumble. On the 30th of August 2023, Ruby Franke's neighbor notified the cops, who were alarmed to see a boy who appeared weak and emaciated with evident open wounds.
Well, actually, just one's fine.
What's going on, son? Have a seat there.
It's personal business.
Have a seat. What's your name? How'd you get here?
We know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty. And he asked us to call the police. So he's very afraid. This kid has obviously been... I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds. We need the cops here as soon as possible.
His ankles and wrists bore duct tape marks, strongly suggesting abuse. When Utah police arrived at the scene, they identified the boy as Ruby Franke's 12-year-old son. He was immediately taken to the hospital for treatment. Further investigation revealed that the boy had been kept at the home of Ruby Franke's business partner, Jody Hildebrandt. Hildebrandt is not only Franke's business partner, but also the co-founder of the counseling organization Connexions, which offered life coaching and counseling services. This establishment promoted a strict and controversial approach to personal development, emphasizing concepts like accountability, truth, and boundaries. It's ironic and disturbing that individuals who had a 12-year-old boy trapped in their basement were offering life coaching to others. Some have claimed that Connexions followed principles based on Jesus' teachings. On the other hand, many people have criticized their unconventional methods and teachings, suggesting that the organization felt more like a cult than a legitimate life coaching service. Given the circumstances, such claims don't seem too far-fetched. The police not only discovered Ruby's 12-year-old son at the house, but also found his 10-year-old sister, who was equally neglected.
Open the door! Jody? Can you step out?
I have 5 chances.
That's great. Step out of the house.
No, I'm not going to step out.
Step out of the house. Step out of the house.
Whoa.
We're just going to see.
Whoa.
You're going to be out phone?
Wait a minute, how do you come to my house?
Right there.
You're going to go into my house.
So have a seat right there.
Do you have a search warrant?
Have a seat right there.
Do you have a search
Have
warrant?
a seat right there.
Allegedly, the boy managed to climb out of a window and knock on the neighbor's door to seek help. This brave action not only rescued the children, but also exposed the horrific situation that Ruby Franke had created.
Hey, you okay? Is this you in here? I'm Sergeant Tobler. What's your name? I just have one. Where's your sister at? You okay? Huh? You doing okay? You don't want to talk to me?
She couldn't sway the cops once she came under their radar. Following their medical treatment, the children were placed into the care of Child Protective Services. The primary objective was to ensure they were in a safe and supportive environment while the legal proceedings continued. Here's a clip of how the cops rescued the children. The seriousness of the case led to an immediate and decisive response from the police. The investigators conducted interviews with the children, including the 10-year-old girl.
You want to talk? Okay. There's nothing at all you want to talk about at all? It's okay to talk to me. Are you scared?
To gather their accounts of the abuse and neglect. These interviews were conducted with sensitivity to ensure the children felt safe and were not re-traumatized. They also interviewed the neighbors to get a fuller picture of the situation and Ruby Franke's behavior. As for Ruby Franke's husband, Kevin Franke, he was not involved in the abuse or the activities Ruby engaged in. However, that doesn't necessarily absolve him of all responsibility or make him completely innocent in the situation. They also investigated Ruby's elder daughter, Sherry. Sherry's Instagram story gives a wider perspective of the scene at Ruby's. During the interrogation, Ruby Franke's reaction to her arrest and the subsequent legal proceedings was characterized by denial and defensiveness. She maintained her innocence and rejected the allegations. Often attributing the accusations to misunderstandings or external factors. According to reports, Ruby Franke's neighbors did have some vague suspicions about her behavior, though they did not anticipate the extent of the abuse. The neighbors mentioned noticing a few red flags, and some even testified, saying, I think we saw some weird things. Despite these hints, the idea of Ruby actually abusing her children was not apparent to them. Jody Hildebrandt's reaction was similar, with attempts to downplay her role and criticize the investigation. Her responses were focused on defending her practices and challenging the claims of abuse. Jody, however, at least answered some questions asked, unlike Ruby.
Watch too many detective movies.
Hell yeah.
Which one's your favorite?
Me too. You can't, honestly, I sit there and I'm married and I sit there and watch those with my wife and I say, we know, that's not how we do it.
At this point, Ruby Franke and her business partner's true intentions were laid bare for the public to see. With their actions exposed, her YouTube channel, which had around 2 million subscribers, was permanently banned. Additionally, Connexions was also removed from the platform. Ruby Franke's sisters released a joint statement on Instagram that read, "For the last 3 years, we have kept quiet on the subject of our sister Ruby Franke for the sake of her children. Behind the public scene, we have done everything we could to try and make sure the kids were safe. Little did they know that the children were suffering each moment they spent with Ruby Franke." When the Washington County Attorney's Office in Utah interviewed Ruby's husband, Kevin Franke, was being interviewed, he addressed that Ruby tends to set and adhere to strict rules at their house. "I suppose you can imagine how bizarre her rules could potentially be. Things between Ruby and Kevin got worse, and he had to live separately. During this period, Jody moved into Ruby's home and became an essential part of their lives. Rumors have it that Ruby and Jody's relationship extended beyond business partnership, but the details remain undisclosed. Kevin also complained about how he was not allowed to see his children and had not seen them in over a year. It truly is staggering how he did not take the issue to the cops and went through all this for several years. The cops also released shocking details of one of her entries, where there is not one but several details that spoke everything about her way of parenting. You must have heard parents grounding children, but have you seen a parent threatening the children and restricting basic necessities as a reprimand? In one of her entries, her blatant writings about attempting to get the devil from her children was a shocking detail that cannot be missed. Another entry, dated July 9, reveals more details about the horrific abuse. She described how she forced the children to sleep on the floor, shaved their heads, dunked her son's head underwater while pinching his nose shut, and intentionally starved them. The level of torment she documented paints a disturbing picture of the cruelty they endured. The way she starved her children and denied them basic care seems absolutely inhuman. Her plan of hiding her inner for online worked for almost a decade, while their abuse was silenced by 3 grown adults, Ruby, Jody, and Kevin Franke. Given all the proofs and witnesses, Ruby Franke and Jody were immediately arrested for aggravated child abuse. Almost a week after their arrests, Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt were hit with 6 counts of felony child abuse. Reports indicate that Franke has entered a guilty plea, and Hildebrandt followed suit. Here are clips of Ruby Franke and Jody during their court hearings. Their behavior in the courtroom can seem aggravating. After all this, one report claims that Franke's older daughter tried calling the police several times about her mother's behavior.
She committed horrible acts of child abuse. Ms. Franke held her children, ages 9 and 11, in a concentration camp-like setting. The children were regularly denied food, water, beds to sleep in, and virtually all forms of entertainment.
I would do anything in this world for you. I took from her all that was soft and safe and good. I took from her a mother. How terrifying this must have been for you.
But the authorities seemingly ignored her pleas. This brings up serious concerns about the department's negligence. Had they acted sooner, Franke might have been arrested earlier. Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt now face 6 felony charges of child abuse, with each count carrying a possible sentence of 1 to 15 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. Due to the seriousness of the children's injuries, the judge denied their bail. Through his attorney, Ruby's husband, Kevin, stated that he was not involved in the abuse. Kevin Franke has now taken responsibility for their 6 children and emphasized that his top priority will be the well-being of his kids and family. Do you think Kevin Franke seems like a reliable person to leave the children with? How would you have handled this case? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for detailed overviews of gripping cases like this one.